So I actually wasn't going to post anything for a while. I just kind of figured that it'd be best to talk, make videos when I feel like I really need to, rather than just do it because I feel like I need to do it. That's kind of how I felt about writing, is that I felt like I was writing for other people rather than writing for myself and when I actually needed to. I think writing, unless you get your thrill off that, I think writing is extremely beneficial when it's in your own journal, it's in your own private space, and you're creating more space to fill your head while taking some negative energy out of your head and putting it on paper. But anyways, I did some reading earlier today and I experienced a trigger. And I think, in case you don't understand a trigger, something that triggers anxiety or panic. And that's when I realized it's a good time to talk. Panic attacks. Panic attacks are terrifying. They are. And they are different for everyone. There's like construction and shit happening like around here. It's the cool season right now, so I can sit outside and not be drenched. But if you can't hear me fully, it'll come and go. But yeah, panic attacks are different for everyone, and I'm trying to pinpoint when I had my first real panic attack, anxiety attack, and the first one that comes to mind is I was 19 years old. I was at school, Randolph-Macon College, and it was some sort of, like maybe homecoming weekend or like parents' weekend, I'm not sure, but I was going through some stuff and my mom was there with me, and I had actually just started a new medication called Concerta. I don't know if anyone's taken Concerta before. It's an ADD, ADHD medication that didn't work that well for me, but it does serve benefits for some people, I guess. But I was really upset about something, and the first thing I noticed was my fingers. My fingers started to get like this tingling sensation, and it slowly started to work its way up. My hands started shaking, and I lost complete control of my breathing. And my face turned red, and I wasn't even crying. I was just like, words couldn't come out. And telling you this, I'm trying to think back to like that exact moment, how I felt, what the physical sensations were. And luckily my mom was right there. She was seeing it, and I don't really think she'd seen anything like that before. I mean, not with me at least. And so I went home that day, went back to my parents' place in Williamsburg, and did a lot of rethinking, kind of tried to understand why it happened. But that was the first real panic attack I remember ever having, that I could identify as one. I think when I was a kid, I definitely did. I remember as a kid, I was always like, this is probably up until I was like 13 maybe, being terrified that like somebody was gonna break into our house. And like my bedroom was basically adjacent to my parents. So, I mean, it was like a 3-step walk to my parents' bedroom. And I remember, like, for a while, I had to have, like, a mat next to their bed. And I would go there and sleep if I was really feeling freaked out, if I was really feeling just like someone was gonna break into the house. And I remember thinking that, kind of having this, I don't know if this would be like obsessive behavior or compulsive behavior, but before bed every night, I would like look under my bed and I would have to turn my head like 7 times. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I would go to my closet and I'd have to do the same thing, but the same thing at the top of the closet and the same thing at the bottom of the closet. So I'd look up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, look at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those were the first I guess like OCD related behaviors that I can recognize as an adult that I experienced as a kid. And I think becoming more in tune with all of this, your mind is naturally going to revert back to things in your past that you may have just not thought about in like half a decade or more, and then it comes up and you're like, wow, like what does that mean? Like what kind of connection is that? Like, is my behavior now some sort of connection to my behavior back then? And I guess that my opinion, I don't know, I think it's up for interpretation. I think that can be a dangerous way of thinking. Because I think a lot of the time the way you act as a kid or as a teenager isn't as much of an indicator of how you're going to be as a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old. Your brain is still developing. You're learning so much, and I think our generation is so different than previous generations. I think a lot of it has to do with what I'm using to make this video right now. Our phones, things are just aren't the same anymore. But going back to these like panic attacks, I mean, I've had many. I mean, I would say I've gone through phases where it's been like weekly, daily. It kind of depends on what's going on or where I'm at. And they're not always physical. Sometimes it's like, and I wrote this in one of my posts, that sometimes it's entirely internal. And one might be you're just exploding inside. You have that feeling in your chest, like that. There's butterflies in your chest, but not the good ones. You have this just... it's almost like something's being twisted in your chest, or your throat just feels like thick and you can't properly get words out. Like no matter what you say, it's not going to come out right. And I have those a lot. I have those a whole lot. And I experienced those in college. I'd say I experienced those in high school, but I think my anxiety then was focused on different things than it is now. So, with that being said, every storm passes, and I touched on this in my last video, but what really sucks about anxiety, OCD, ADD, depression is that I almost fear good moods, because I know that a good mood is going to be followed by a bad wave. A good mood is going to be followed by a bad mood, essentially. A good day is going to be followed by a bad day. A week ago, it was last Thursday, I had a great day. I felt really under control, I feel like my head was under control, and then the next day, I was a mess. And I couldn't really figure out why. It could have been a combination of lack of sleep. It could have been, I've found that caffeine sometimes can fuel anxiety. Alcohol, 100%. I've learned that pretty recently, that after a night of drinking, I've never gotten, like, I'm not going to talk about this too much because I know that I'm in the minority for it, but I've never gotten, like, really bad physical hangovers, but I always get emotional hangovers. I get crippling anxiety, crippling, suffocating, negative thoughts after a night of drinking. And it's, even if it's more than like 2 glasses of wine, I'll feel something the next day. I enjoy going out. Like, if I'm going to a new place, yeah, it's cool. I'd love to be able to go out, but is it worth the heartache, the mental headache the next day? So know with a panic attack that it'll go away. And the physical ones can be also like your skin goes red, or there have been times when I've been like looking in the mirror and I can just see myself, my face turning red, like tears going down my face, and my chest becoming red, and just my breathing getting faster and faster and faster, and I don't know what to do. I remember my parents like coming out of the bedroom and seeing this happen at like 5 o'clock in the morning and being like, what the fuck is happening? And I didn't know. I couldn't really tell them. I mean, there are things that like, yes, I do want to talk to my parents about, but there are things I also don't want to talk to my parents about. And I think that it went away. I laid in my bed, did some deep breathing, and then I felt really tired. After a panic attack, you feel really, really exhausted, because, I mean, your body just essentially went through trauma. It just went through, basically, you just ran a marathon. Like, you are just physically and mentally exhausted, and so then I just fell asleep. The next, and I think most severe panic attack, and in the moment I really had no clue what was going on, but I was a junior in college, 21 years old, and that was a phase of my life where I just felt like I was going through a crisis. And I just turned 25. Everyone says, get ready for your quarter-life crisis. But I've had a crisis probably every year in my 20s, so I'm kind of ready for whatever comes my way at this point. But I had mentioned before that, like, I had abused my ADD meds before. I had taken 80 milligrams of Adderall during a week where we had a lot of work to do. I think it was probably the week before exam week, or the week before exam week. And so I was all cracked out, got a lot of work done, but got back to my apartment. Well, I lived in an off-campus house, and got back to my house, and obviously, like, wasn't able to fall asleep. Like, there was no way. And so I took a bong rip, and it was a really intense bong rip. I mean, I coughed for like a straight like 5 minutes. And I remember I was already kind of, I don't want to say depressed, but just kind of, I was having some situational depression about stuff during that phase. Like, I knew that in 2 years that I was going to be on my own. I was going to be supporting myself. My grades were terrible. and I was nervous I wasn't going to graduate on time. And even if that was the case, I look back on it now, like, sometimes I wish that I'd taken, like, a gap year after high school, just to, like, figure out what I want to do, and maybe kind of figure out what my interests are, and then choose where I want to go to school. But I'm not going to get into that. I mean, it's a whole different can of worms. But anyways, I was already pretty down about some stuff at that point. I remember scrolling through social media and seeing something that used to bring me a lot of joy, and I felt a lot of just negative nostalgia. Like, I wish I was back at that. I saw a picture of myself with someone else, and I remember I had a lot of negative nostalgia, and I was like, I really wish my headspace could get back to where I was in that moment. And then it started to kind of spiral down, and even further. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try to sleep. I'm going to try to go to bed. I turned the lights out, and I closed my eyes, and a lot of just, it was like a bad trip almost. I've never taken acid, I've never taken shrooms, DMT, but it was really like hallucinations when I would close my eyes, bad ones. And so I didn't know what to do, and I didn't really understand what was happening, and I felt like my feet starting to shake, and I felt it slowly kind of start to work its way up. And it must have been like 3:30 in the morning at this point, and I felt it start to work its way up, and then I got up and looked in the mirror, and I saw that, like, my feet were blue, and my calves were, like, starting to turn blue, and my fingertips are starting to turn blue, my neck, and kind of like the sensitive areas of my skin around my face were just starting to change color. And I lost it. I had no clue what was happening. I, like, paced around my room just kind of in panic, did everything I could, drank a ton of water, and just kind of had a just blind rage almost. And just couldn't figure out what was happening. So I called 911 on myself, and I, like, stumbled over to my roommate's room, like, crashed into all the furniture. I couldn't stand up straight, crashed into, like, all the furniture. Getting to his room and said, dude, like, the police are gonna come, the ambulance is gonna come. I'm just letting you know. My two roommates who were living upstairs, I didn't say anything to. I think they just woke up to, like, the reds and blues and the sirens and stuff. So I stayed on the phone with the operator, and they said, okay, come outside. And I saw the ambulance, like, further in the distance, and first a police officer pulled up, and he said, like, you're the one overdosing, right? And I just said, I don't know. And he came up to me and said, all right, well, like, spread your arms and legs. And he patted me down, and he asked, like, what'd you take? And I said, and I told him, I said, I took Adderall, and I smoke pot. And he was like, where is it? And I said, and I wasn't really in, like, it was one of those things, I don't know if you felt like this before, but it's just like, it's like your body shut down. So my facial expression, it was almost just like I got rid of it. Like, I couldn't speak, I couldn't get my voice out. I could really just, like, mumble, because I was so I felt defeated. I felt scared, but also felt like my life was over. I thought, I'm so fucked. And, like, I actually did flush. I actually wasn't prescribed Adderall at the time. was actually prescribed a different. I was prescribed Concerta at the time, but I had gotten Adderall because it helped me focus better. So, anyways, I had flushed like all my Adderall down the toilet, flushed all the weed down the toilet, and he said, "Where is it?" And then he finished patting me down, and then signaled the ambulance to come over, and I got in, and they checked my blood pressure. Blood pressure was really, really high, and he was in there like asking me like, "Where'd you get the weed from? Where'd you get the Adderall from?" And I just said I'm prescribed ADD meds, and I don't know. I said I don't know who I got the weed from. I mean, I did know, but I obviously wasn't gonna say anything. And so I was laying in there. I mean, IVs in me and shit. 4 o'clock in the morning. My roommates were. I mean, I don't know if they were like seeing what was going on or not, but they definitely saw. I mean, they told me the next day that they saw like everything going on, and so I'm laying here and just thinking my life's over. I'm about to have some like, I mean, if you're caught with Adderall and you're unprescribed, I mean, like that's like a major felony charge, and I don't want to get into all that, but I'm just laying in there being like, my life's over. This is fucked, and just kind of in the same tone, just asking like asking the paramedics am I in trouble? And they were like, well, we're just here to help you. And then the police officer said like, let this be a lesson learned, and then he walked away. They took me to the hospital. They asked me what like had happened, what was going on, and I told them that I had probably overdosed on some ADHD meds. I mean, I don't really know what the official overdose for an amphetamine is exactly. I mean, they're all different kinds, but I definitely took way more than I should have. One, because I liked the high that it gave, and two, I felt like I needed it to be productive. And I took a bong rip so I could fall asleep. But that's when I realized that weed actually gives me pretty intense anxiety rather than calming me down. So, like, to this day, I don't smoke weed. If I do, it's in very minimal amounts, and I think my phone shut off after like 25 minutes, so I'm just starting over again. But what I was saying is that since that point, when I've smoked, and I mean, I've splurged a little bit, but now I pay more attention to the strain. There's some strains that are better for just chilling on the couch, watching a movie, going to sleep, and there are other strains that do kind of amplify your head, that I guess are better smoking during the day. Those are the ones that I avoid, because those usually, if I'm already anxious about something, then I'm going to be even more anxious about it. It's going to make me think about it even more and make me go down that rabbit hole even further. An example is like if I'm hungover and I smoke, I'll just focus even more about how shitty I feel. And so I guess that's just never been a comfort for me. I wanted to share that story because the story of me going to the hospital, because I'll be honest, like in high school, this may sound extremely naive, but it's just not something I really ever thought would happen to me. I never really thought I would go to the hospital for, abusing drugs and or mixing drugs and having that kind of adverse reaction to it, whether it be a severe panic attack or an actual effect of amphetamines on the body. And I'm like 16, 17 years old, sitting in health class in high school. You hear about all these things, these real life shit that happens to people on a daily basis. But I think your brain at that point is so focused on what's thrown at you or just what's directly in front of you that you're not really thinking ahead at that point. So I take that as like a learning lesson. And I mean, I know that there are people out there who I'm sure have gone through extremely and worst experiences than I did. So, but I just wanted to give you my account. I think going back to panic attacks, anxiety, depression, OCD, ADD, bipolar disorder, someone told me that they don't consider themselves to have those things. And when I say that, she doesn't identify herself as saying, I have anxiety, or I have depression, or I have OCD, or I have bipolar disorder. And that she would identify herself as someone who was exposed to experiences and adversities in life that created that reaction within her body. And that's why her brain reacted the way it did, and she overcame it and is extremely happy. And I think that from hearing that was really refreshing, and I found that to be a really healthy way of looking at it. And something that I really try to believe as well is that anxiety is, well, severe anxiety, let's say like an anxiety disorder, is extreme recognition and awareness that you are alive. So you are aware of the beautiful things that can happen in life, and you are also aware of the tragic things that life can throw at you. And anxiety disorders usually go towards the latter, the dark moments and the doomsday thoughts, worst case scenario. And so the thoughts of my brain being a reaction to my environment growing up throughout my entire life, and seeing anxiety as recognition that I am alive, that I am living, that my heart is beating, and that anxiety can also be a sign of intelligence, has been comforting. And I do believe that everybody out there has some sort of brilliance within them. Some people find that in their teens, some people find that in their 20s, some people find that in their 30s, some people don't find that until a much older age. But I do believe that everyone does find that at some point. And so and I wrote this in one of my posts, that it's not easy finding your intention. And there are all different kinds of ways of going about doing that. I'm in Thailand right now. There are times when I love it. There are times when I hate it. But I think that this was a step in trying to find my intention and where the direction that I want to take my life. So hopefully these words can help whoever chooses to watch this. And I'm also open to hearing to anything you have to say. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying, I'm more than open to hearing your side as well, naturally. And I want to stress that even if you don't know me, if you do know me, I'm just a text away, I'm a message away, I'm a phone call away, even though I'm across the world. So please never in a million years hesitate to reach out. So thank you.